Well, thank you all. There we go. These are recorded, these founder calls. And if you would like to listen to any of the other ones, Chris and I can send you a link afterwards. It's actually in our website under the franchise portal. So it's one way to get additional information. I think these calls are really helpful in terms of a group being on, because there are a lot of different questions that come up. So this morning, Costa will talk a little bit about how he chose this business and what we've developed it into today. And I think some of the unique propositions that we have, and a little bit about the market. And then we'll open it up for questions. And we usually do a round robin just so we can get through everyone's questions, at least give everyone a chance to do that. This call is part of our research process that we think is helpful to you, and also for us to get to know you a little bit better. Generally speaking, after this call, for those folks who are at different stages, I usually will run through an FDD review call. So please keep studying those, and then usually run into a territory call. And then we have a discovery day, which we do once a month. And I know some of you are committed for August, and then Jesus and Anthony, I think you're going to be doing the September one. The dates again on those two: August the 17th and 18th, and September the 14th and 15th. And that's where we do a real deep dive into the concept. So I think if you could keep your questions today at a broader level, that probably is more efficient. And then, Chris and I can cover any sort of deep-seated questions with you on some future calls, and we'll definitely cover the real estate piece. In fact, everything: real estate, the leasing option, marketing, and all of the support programs we have at the Discovery Day. So anyway, I'm Costa, if you're back, I will pass it over to you.
Thanks, Michael. So
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for being on the call. These calls have been a great part of the learning experience, because everyone who comes to them has such a diversity of backgrounds and ideas and questions, and it just makes for a better conversation really around not only just the oil change business, but franchising in general. And one of the reasons that I looked to do franchising was to have that broader scope within the organization, rather than continually just open corporate stores and slowly try to make an impact on the industry. This was the best way to scale quickly, and I think that our model resonates, and that's why we've had such success selling these franchise territories. And so we've only been doing this for about 14 months, and we've sold over 100 territories up to this point. And when we first started this, I was doing a lot of one-on-one phone calls, and then it got to the point where it made more sense to do these kind of group style calls where we could all participate in a conversation on what what this should look like, and what would be helpful for the people that are looking for franchises. And that has helped us in become a better franchise system, even for people who haven't joined the system. So just a little bit about me. I started in finance. I worked at TD Ameritrade in brokerage, Merrill Lynch in asset management, and lastly, T. Rowe Price in small business retirement plans and asset management. And I was dealing with small business owners on a day in, day out basis. And I always felt as though I was very entrepreneurial. I always had like side businesses, and I thought maybe if I started a business that it would kind of scratch that itch, and I would stop moving from one institution to the next. And so I took over a quick lube in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I spent a lot of time at my desk at T. Rowe Price, reverse engineering kind of at the time, Yelp was still pretty relevant, and I was reading a lot of reviews at my desk and from some of the larger chains, and figuring out, okay, what are the pain points that they're seeing? How can we make this better? How can we, create a product for the consumer that is what they're hoping and looking for? And so we implemented that model at the Harrisburg store. I was fortunate enough to be able to take over a store that was relatively close by in Dillsburg, Pennsylvania, a town of 6,000 people. Replicated the model again and saw success. The third store was in Mount Prospect, Illinois, which is a suburb of Chicago, pretty close to O'Hare Airport. And that was really kind of what was the turning point in the organization in terms of, that was very much an absentee owned business in terms of I physically could not be in the Chicago area on a regular basis. It's 700 miles away. And so very early on, embedded in the DNA of this business was processes, was checklists, was third-party applications, third-party resources, and basically figuring out ways to manage this business without having to be there. And so we found a lot of good processes and we built it into our system, which led to our 4th location being in Pittsburgh, our 5th location being in Youngstown, Ohio. We came back to Central PA with our 6th location in Hanover, Pennsylvania, Millersville, and then our 8th location in Camp Hill. And our 9th location ended up being back in the Chicagoland area in Bloomingdale. And number 10, we came back to Central PA again. Fast forward, we're going to be approaching 20 corporate locations by the end of the year. Some of them I own the real estate, some of them are just leases. And there's benefits and there's cons and benefits to both, and we can talk about any of that as well. When we got to location number 10, that's basically when I thought to myself, okay, I'm either going to go down this course of opening up a lot of corporate stores, or we can try to scale nationally, make an impact on the industry, kind of turn it on its head. I didn't like where the larger brands were going with the multi-care and becoming just another auto repair shop. And I think that wasn't what the consumer wanted. And I feel as though most great brands are built out of fulfilling a void in the consumer space. And I think that's what we're doing. And if we can execute on getting these stores open, if we can execute on continuing to scale that, we could very easily take over that top of mind brand awareness when it comes to the quick lube space. And so that's basically where we're at right now. We've opened a couple of franchises in the past few months, and we have several slated more to open. So every time we open a new franchise location, it's a learning experience. We are an emerging brand, and there's benefits and cons to that as well. And we can obviously talk about all of that and any questions that you guys have. So I will let Michael curate, unless there's anything I missed. I know I did an abbreviated version of what I normally talk about, but if there's anything I missed, feel free to poke at it, Michael, and I can answer.
Okay. Well, yeah, we'll run through the questions, I think, and that should steer the conversation. Thanks, Costa. Tommy, I saw you came up first on my screen. I had a picture of you. Thank you for joining us. I don't know now if it's iPhone 2. But Tommy, if you have a question for Costa, please go ahead.
No, I don't have any particular question. I'm just listening. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for joining us. Nathan, I see you up next. Do you have a question for Costa? We'll give you a chance to get off mute.
I'll actually ask the same question I asked you the other week. So typically when you get oil change done, you also rotate your tires. How do you deal with that? In fact, how do you make people want to come and just get the oil change without getting their tires rotated? It seems to me that it would be more efficient to do both at the same time. And I understand
Yeah, tire rotations are not on the same interval as oil changes, and by not tying up a bay with a process that can be anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes, we focus on what we truly believe the consumer wants, which is a no hassle oil change. That's basically our North Star. None of my stores do tire rotations. It hasn't impacted our growth at all. And most places have, like in Pennsylvania, you have to get inspections. And so for our customers that typically they'll get their tire rotated when they have to go to the Midas or the Meineke in order to get their state inspection, which is also something that we don't do. But that doesn't prohibit them from coming back to us. They do create scissor lifts for quick lubes specifically to do tire rotations. But again, when you're tying up a bay, that's just more time that the person behind them is not able to get their oil change done. And for most people, that's the main goal at the end of the day. Tire wear is very dependent on region and driving style, and so it can be impacted by the way that people drive and the roads that they're driving on. And so while some people's tire rotation intervals might be longer, some might be shorter, so those are all variables to consider as well. But we're not really interested in getting down that road of having to, one, it impacts the labor that you hire, right? Because it's a much higher liability service to do tire rotations. It's a very simple task, of course, but it's one that Jiffy Lube has dealt with and had issues with in terms of liability and staffing. So for our model, when you keep it as niche as possible, then you have a very clear objective. You have very clear requirements for the people that you hire, and you get really good at what you do. And then you can be both fast and good. Not cheap, but there's that old saying that you can be fast, good, and cheap, but you can only be two of those things. And so we want to be fast and good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Costa, I wanted to just add in, Nathan, if I may, I've been working with a gentleman from Mesa in Arizona. He owns a general repair, and he had the opportunity to buy an oil change only facility, an independent brand, about a year ago. And it's interesting. He talks about how much easier it is to manage the oil change facility. But I actually asked him the same question in terms of what he experiences in Mesa. And he said what he's noticed, and he's owned the business for a year already. He wants to own more, and that's why we're talking to him. We're looking to build out the Phoenix market. But he said the same thing. He said, the clients that are coming in to see me, and he mentioned some amazing statistic to me. A bay time is like 4.5 to 5 minutes. He said, I market my brand much like we do, as where people can come and save time and they buy back time. And he said they're not asking me for tire rotations, and they get it done at other places. I think for him too, having general repair is his oil change staff refer them to his general repair facility. But it was interesting. I checked that with him, and he said that there was no issue. And he's actually increased their car count by about 25%. He's doing about 31 cars a day out of that facility. So anyway, I hope that's helpful. Next up, Anthony, I saw you. I think I saw your name. Didn't see your face yet, but thank you for being on the call. You have a question for Costa?
Hey, Michael. Good morning. Anthony Kalingo here. Costa, no, thank you for making the time to meet with us. No, just for me, I'm just trying to better understand, how the demand works in the quick lube business. I liked your example about, with the lift. I mean, it's very customer focused, where, we don't do tire rotations because we don't want the person behind waiting. I really do like Costa. I actually got my car oil changed there a couple days ago, and I mean, it was like 8.5 minutes I was in and out of there. And that's something I don't think I've ever experienced. I've had quick oil changes, but not quite that quick. So really excited about what you're doing.
Which store did you go to?
I was in the one outside of Pittsburgh. I can give you the city. It was
Gibsonia, Golden Mile, or North for Sales.
Yep, North for Sales. That was it. The one on Lincoln Highway.
Yep. Yeah, those guys are great. The manager there has been working for me for 7 years, which is part of the reason why that store is as good as it is. And actually our full timer has been there for the same amount of time, which is almost unheard of in our space. So that's a really good store. I'm not surprised you had a good experience there. I'm sorry, I distracted myself. What was the question again?
It was really just around the speed. I think Anthony was just saying that he hasn't really experienced that type of speedy bay time.
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing that I realized early on, and this actually, once we really honed in on this in the content branding, was that we're selling people their time back, right? They're paying a premium for their oil change to come to us because we're not the cheapest, right? Because other people in our space use oil changes as a loss leader in order to sell other services. So you can go to Meineke for the $29.99 oil change, but then you're going to have to set an appointment. You're going to lose your car for half the day. If their employee doesn't show up who does the oil changes, then you're going to have to kick it to another day. For us, we want you to show up, get the oil changing, go on with the rest of your day. We want to hire people that have the ability to look the customer in the eye and carry a conversation, because you can't teach that, but you can teach anybody to do an oil change. And so we just want the experience to be one where there's as least friction as possible. And I just think that is consistent with basically the direction of every startup that's happening right now, whether it's in tech or home services. Like, any business that reduces friction between the service and the end user is winning right now. And so in some ways, our industry is ahead of its time. The thing is, when you get an industry leader that pulls away so far and away, and Jiffy Lube was on top for so long, they moved the market. And so when they decided to go down the multi-care route, typically the independents will follow. And so so that North for Sales location that you visited, when I first took over that location in 2016, they were doing tire rotations, they were selling tires, they were doing brakes, they were renting U-Hauls, they were installing the breathalyzers, and they were only doing 8 oil changes a day. And day one, I cut all of that out, and the manager who I inherited, who still works for me, he's like, hey, we're losing a lot of revenue by not doing these other things. I was like, if you trust the process and we do oil changes only and you provide this service, then you'll see the results are going to come. And that store is our second highest performing store in the system. So, and that's only a town of North for Sales is a town of 30,000 people. So I really believe that if you do follow the model, like I said, our North Star is the customers want to know frills oil change. And as long as we, keep that ethos in mind, that I think that the stores will grow.
Costa, that's a great example of what you've done. I think the proposition that Costa has. Antonio, it's great to see you this morning, all the way from Austin in Texas.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for joining us. Do you have a question?
First of all, apologize for the late entrance. I'm having computer problems, but just listening to all the good questions and response, it brings one question to me. What does Costa envision as far as trying to retain that customer base? You have all these competing vendors, that are doing quick oil change, and they have other services to offer, but what's keeping customers to come back in the Costa's business model to come back to?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have a really high retention rate. And these customers are very sticky. So the larger issue is getting them to fire their previous oil change provider, because we are in a mature industry. So everybody who's on the road outside of Teslas is getting oil changes right now. So everybody has, unless they're a first-time car owner, everyone has already gone to somewhere to get an oil change, whether it's our business usually divides it into do it for me versus do it myself. And so the do it for me segment grows more and more every single day. And when we are capturing those people by doing marketing in the year that we live in versus marketing in, you know, direct mailers don't really work for this industry. We're a volume business. So if you spend, you know, $4,000 on a mailer, in order to make that money back, you need quite a few of those to come back in, as opposed to some, you know, lower volume, higher ticket average businesses like roofing, where, you know, if you get one back in, it pays for the rest of the money mailer. So, you know, we have to be really, really smart about our ad spend. And right now, even with the most recent iOS 14 update that kind of turned Facebook advertising on its head, you know, there's still not a better platform than Facebook and Instagram to reach people and put our content in front of them. And then it's just about storytelling, because like I said, if we stick to trying to sell people their time back, if we do our storytelling and our brand building based around the convenience of it, then once they're in and experience us, the probability of them coming back is very high. So we just need to get over that barrier of them, you know, firing someone else. And people in general leave services for three reasons. One, the cleanliness of the facility, the appearance of the facility. Two, the experience they have inside the facility, whether it's the people or the service itself. And then three, price, right? So when it comes to getting people to come in for price, there's always discounting, right? Coupons, discounting, Groupon, things like that. That's one. In terms of user experience, that is hiring people who know how to look someone in the eye. We're not a mechanic shop. I tell all my employees when we hire them that we are retail first, automotive second. So some of my best employees have been from quick service restaurant like KFC, Taco Bell, things like that, because they've dealt with high volume, high conflict, high anxiety situations and know how to handle it. And basically we want them to connect with the customer on a personal level. And then three, appearances wise, that's UI UX, which is just user experience, user interaction. Facilities, we want to keep them clean. We want to keep them clean. We want to keep it presentable. We don't have our employees wear mechanic uniforms, because this can be an intimidating experience for people. I tell my guys all the time, I know changing oil is second nature to you, but for, you know, a 22-year-old college grad who is driving over that hole in the floor for the first time ever, it can be a high anxiety situation. So you want to be able to put them at ease. And so we don't want to make that situation even more, you know, pressured by having the appearance of being something we're not. And so mechanics have gotten away with for a long time not having to give the best customer service, and, you know, they'll throw the car up on the lift and smoke a cigarette and you know, and swear and play loud music, and, you know, we can't do that. We have to we want it to be more conversational and more, you know, we have an internal tagline in our employee handbook for the corporate employees that work for me that says, the most educated consumer will always choose us. So for a lot of people that don't own their home, their vehicle is the most valuable asset that they own. And so we need to be good stewards of their property. And by teaching them about their car, that creates credibility. And when you create credibility, it also turns cold sales to warm sales. And all of a sudden, when you're offering a service that is actually necessary, the conversion rate is a little bit higher, or a lot higher rather. And then you can still get that end goal of increasing ticket average without having to feel slimy about doing it. So that's a long-winded answer to a much simpler question, but I hope that helps.
Oh yeah, I appreciate it.
Yep. Antonio, I may have mentioned this to you, and as I work with candidates, taking them through the research process, so I may sound like a stuck record, but, you know, I think tying into your question and what Costa shared is go and check, and for everyone on the call, go and check and Google Costa Oil Youngstown. We've got a great manager there as well. He's very good with people. And I think as you read through the reviews, it will help you understand why people are going back. to that particular location in Youngstown and the reasons they do it. And I can share that they've grown that business tremendously over the last 4 years. So anyway, just another note on that. Jesus, thank you for joining us. Do you have a question?
Hi, good morning. My question was just in regards to the, I think we touched on in passing the challenge between leasing and buying a space. And Costa, would you mind just elaborating on that a little bit more?
Yeah, so there's 3 different scenarios here, and they all pose different issues. Leasing a facility, you always have the inherent risk of the landlord selling the property, and then you have a new landlord, and you, of course, you can do a long-term lease to try to tie that in, but then there's risks with that as well. Fee simple real estate is when you own the land and the building. Typically, that's the best scenario, is to own the land and the building, because then it's just rolled up into one rent payment, and it's typically lower than what you would get for a lease anyway. The problem with fee simple real estate is there's a large outlay of capital up front. Commercial real estate loans typically require 20 to 30% down. It's not like an FHA loan where you can put 3% down on a $500,000 building. You're putting up 20% on a sometimes a $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 building. We have a program in place for the third scenario, which is where you lease the building, lease the ground, and then lease the building from our third-party investor with the opportunity to buy the building at a later date. That is our easy leaseback program, where we have a group of private investors who are going to fund the construction of a building after finding a ground lease. The investors are also open to purchasing real estate and building the building on top of the real estate, but then we get into an area where the cost might start getting out of hand. So just to, the nuts and bolts of it are, we basically do a 10 cap, which means on a $300,000 build out, take 10% of 300,000, you have 30,000, and then you divide that by 12 months, and then that's your monthly rental rate. So that's 2,500. So the building rent would be 2,500, and say your ground lease is $1,500 a month. So now you're at $4,000 a month out the door for a brand new building, right? That's unheard of in our industry. So when you get into the place where all of a sudden you're buying the land and the building, and say the land is 300,000 and the building's 300,000, you take that same 10%, and now you get 60,000, and you have to divide that by 12, and now your monthly payment's $5,000 a month instead of the 4. And really what we're trying to do is minimize the ramp up period as much as possible, because there's an inherent ramp up period when it comes to automotive and quick lube specifically, right? So when a Chick-fil-A opens, people that go there on the grand opening day can eat there 4 more times that week, 5 more times that week, and they have instant cash flow, positive cash flow. When we have a grand opening, every single car that comes through our doors, it doesn't matter if we gave them the best oil change they've ever had in their life, that car's got to travel 3,000 to 5,000 to 7,000 miles before it comes back in, and that takes months at a time. And so we don't have that instant cash flow that, say, a food service would have. And so by eliminating as much overhead as possible, simplifying the model, we aim to create as least burden on the operator as possible. And we do that by keeping those building costs in check through, by doing it the way that we're doing it. So those are really the 3 scenarios. Of course, if a franchisee wants to buy their building from our builder rather than use the investors, that is an option as well. And it will still, the price of the building doesn't change based on who's financing the construction. And I do think that, owning assets is one of the best ways to build generational wealth. So, I own a handful of my quick lube facilities, and I charge myself rent based on what the operation of that facility can handle. And that, that pass-through money comes to an LLC that we formed to own the real estate. And that's been, personally, one of the more so than the actual operation of the business, a nice way to generate quote unquote passive income.
Very helpful. Thank you.
I can take one more call, Michael, then I gotta go.
Okay. I know there's a phone number here, but anyway, David, I see your name come up. David Lyles, do you have a question for Costa?
This point, I'm just listening. So really good information, though. Thank you, Costa.
Thank you.
Okay, super. Last one quickly. Telephone number 570-660-1830. I'm not sure who it is. Anne, is it you?
That's my number, Costa, Nathan.
Oh, it is. Okay, Nathan. Thank you. Thanks. You're doing the audio through your phone. So I think, Anne, unless you have a quick question for Costa, we could let him leave the call. Okay. I think we're good. What we could do, if there are any other questions, you could just route them through us. We can always get you in contact with Costa as well. So thank you very much, Costa, for the call and all of our participants, and we'll look forward to getting to know you better. Chris, thanks for joining us. Okay, we're
Thanks
good to
for
go.
having me, Michael. See you guys.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.